What's going on, everybody? This is Steve from Bloom Audio. Today we're going to talk about the Cayin N7 Plus. Now, this may come as a surprise to some of you who watch my videos, but if I'm being honest, for my own personal audio purchases, I have a hard time justifying a digital audio player that costs more than, say, like a flagship smartphone or a well-spec'd iPad. And with prices on some of the newer flagships going up over $4,000, it does kind of bring that into focus and add in questions of diminishing returns. You know, is a $1,000 player really better than a $500 player? Is a $2,000 player better than a $1,000 player? And where's that sweet spot where you're really getting the most for your money? Now, it's always hard to find that spot exactly, but with the release of Cayin N7 Plus, I think that sweet spot is just around $1,599. Why is that? Well, we're going to take a closer look at the N7 Plus, some of its competitors, and some stuff that's a step above to see why I think this new player really fits neatly into that perfect spot of maximizing both the performance and the value. Cayin N7 Plus is a digital audio player, follows up on the previous Cayin N7, upgrades just about everything from the original. More power output, a better op-amp design, more features, new titanium shell, just basically the full works as an upgrade on that original. In terms of the specific specs, N7 Plus features a Snapdragon 665 SoC, runs Android 12 OS, has 4 gigs of RAM with 64 gigs of internal storage and support for micro SD cards up to 1 terabyte. Display is a 5-inch 1080p TFT screen. Estimated battery life is 13 hours of playback time, and it supports PD 2.0 fast charging. For outputs, you have 3.5 and 4.4 millimeter outputs with separate channels for line out and headphone out. The DAC architecture is a discrete, balanced 1-bit DAC. The unit weighs 13 ounces or 370 grams, and you also have SPDIF output and other options on there. In the box, you're going to get charge cable, screen protectors, premium case for the N7 Plus. In terms of using the device, I found N7 Plus to be very fast and responsive. It comes with the Google Play Store pre-installed, so you can easily install whatever apps you want on there. And Cayin has their built-in player, so if you don't want to use this with any apps, you don't have to connect it to the Wi-Fi. You can just plug a micro SD card in there or copy the files over from a computer and get to listening with the built-in player software. For audio controls, you can select the gain level, low, medium, high. You can choose between a Class A or Class AB amp, and you can adjust the DSD upsampling to go as high as DSD 512. There are also some settings for the line out or preamp mode, and it has full MQA support. The player software also includes built-in EQ with parametric graphic options, presets, and all that kind of stuff you've probably come to expect in a premium DAP at this point. In terms of the sound, I was really impressed with the N7 Plus because I felt like the original, I liked that it was more of a warm, organic sounding player, but at times it was a little bit too warm, a little too soft at the top. Just felt like it didn't have the sort of the dynamics and the punch in the presentation. N7 Plus maintains that organic feeling and a non-fatiguing overall presentation, but it ups the detail, the separation, the imaging, the whole picture. So you get that similar character to the original N7, but just with overall ton of sonic improvements, I think, to give you that full audio picture from the player. Output power is, I think, basically about par for this price range. If you look at like the Aston Current SE300 or the SP3000M, going to give you about the same level of performance when it comes to, more demanding IEMs like the Fat Freak Grand Maestro, or that range of moderate power requirement headphones, a Hi-Fi Man Aria Unveiled, or the Meze Empyrean 2. You're going to do pretty well with that class, but if you push it too much further, you are going to feel like you're losing something in the amplification. I did also notice if you're pushing high gain, Class A amp, DSD 512 upsampling with a hard to drive headphone, the unit can get a little bit hot. It wasn't crazy hot, but it might be something worth noting if you plan on having it in your pocket and using it with headphones. That again, any Class A amplifier is going to generate some heat. It was somewhat noticeable with this. So given features, power, design, who is the N7 Plus for? I think first and foremost, N7 Plus is a unit that's for people who want something that can kind of touch those ultimate heights of sound that you get in those $3,000-$4,000 flagship players, but does want to keep value somewhere in that equation. You want to get some of that Ashton Kern SP4000 pristine sound, but you also recognize that at $4,200 for a digital audio player, you have crossed that point of diminishing returns and you want to stay below that line. And that's where I think N7 really is incredible. Probably the two pieces of the sound presentation that stood out to me were N7 Plus's soundstage and that ability to deliver very fine sort of micro detail, micro dynamics without feeling harsh or fatiguing. And I think those two elements in particular are things like that top end of Ashton Kern players for typically, that you get the fine details, but it never feels harsh or sharp or too in your face with it in order to deliver that. And also, I think the imaging and the soundstage is another thing that separates flagship DAPs from, the lower tier crowd. The sense of tactile imaging and holographic separation, and N7 Plus is giving you a lot of that, especially when you consider the price. And where the soundstage and imaging factors feel really, really good, another thing that actually is a step up from some of these other players is the battery life. Cayin claims 13 hours of battery life. I actually found in my listening, dealing with digital files, not streaming, so no Wi-Fi here, I was actually trending a little bit better than 13 hours based on, how much I was losing in battery life. So I think that 13 hours number is actually pretty accurate. You're not going to be working really hard to achieve that. Where a lot of other players, they'll say 10 or 12 hours of battery life, but then you get reports of, we're getting like 6 or 7 hours of that. And that lines up with testing we've done. So I think not only is this spec'd at a slightly higher battery life than the competition, it's actually achieving that in our practical tests. Now you've also got the option to do Class A or Class AB amplification on this. There's not a huge difference. I found Class A to be a little bit more punchy and dynamic. AB was a little bit softer, maybe closer to what I remember the original N7 sounding like there. And you also have that DSD upsampling option. Again, very kind of minute differences at each level. And these two options are going to be two of the biggest factors in your battery life also. So you have some amount of wiggle room to say, going with the DSD 64 upsampling versus the 512 for really small loss in some of the detail, while going with a Class A amp to preserve the dynamics and still maintain strong battery life. You have that option to sort of make your own decisions in terms of the sound quality, the battery life, and some amount of the preference in the sound. And when you start putting all these pieces together, the features, the sound quality, battery life, even the fact that its unit's a little bit lighter than most of the competition. It's lighter than the Ibasso DX340, definitely lighter than the SP3000, even though it's about the same size as the SP3000, smaller than the 4000. So you kind of see this is a very well-balanced unit, very well-designed and thoughtful in what they put into it. Even little things like the I2S mini port on there and that sort of thing. So it's got some very cool features, amazing sound, and that $1599 price tag makes for a great package. So should you buy it? First off, compared to the original N7, if you're looking to upgrade that, N7 Plus is literally just a step up on everything. It's got more headphone power output, better battery life, more detail, better overall sound, more features, more responsive player. It's just literally everything about the original N7, but better. Now, if you're looking in that under $2,000 range, big competition here is really the Ibasso DX340. N7 Plus to me has the edge in sound quality over the DX340. I think the soundstage is wider, imaging is a little bit clearer, and there's elements of those micro details that I can, with intent listening, catch a little bit more on the N7 Plus. On the other hand, DX340 gives you a broader range of customization options. The amp card, you can install a tube amp card in there, which that one sounds incredible. There's little user features like the replaceable batteries, and the general device OS, the snappiness and responsiveness is a little bit better on the DX340 over the N7 Plus. So there's some advantages to the 340, purely in terms of the level of sound quality. For the money though, I'd give the edge to the N7 Plus. And now if you're looking upwards toward that top tier flagship sound, and money isn't maybe as big of an object, but it's still not completely irrelevant. So maybe looking at something like the SP3000M from Astle & Kern, these units are very close in sound. There's a slight edge to the 3000M, I think, where it does get that sort of tactile feeling and the imaging a little bit more. There's more body and sense of physical presence at the instruments sometimes in the 3000M over the N7 Plus. But a lot of elements of the detail, the space, and all of that are very close on the N7 Plus. It's just maybe a little more diffuse than the Astle & Kern. And then when you add in that price factor, it does feel like, value for the money, not also thinking about the user interface factor, where I think N7 Plus has an edge over SP3000M. I think unless literally the sound is 100% the only thing that matters, and you're okay paying that extra $1,000 for diminishing returns, in that case, yeah, the 3000M is a little bit better, but the N7 Plus just presents such a strong value comparison there. So basically, if you're looking for that top of the line flagship design, sound, and general experience, but you kind of want to keep your price range closer to single kilobuck than multi-kilobuck, N7 Plus strikes that balance really well by giving you sound that reaches for those heights, price tag that's more in the middle, and a number of other features like the battery life and the weight that compares surprisingly well to some more expensive items. Thanks for watching. You can check out N7 Plus and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more high fidelity audio content.